I was 32, married to my wife Emily, who was 27, for nearly 6 years. We had been together for over 8 years, and for the most part, I believed we were the perfect couple. Both of us had stable jobs, nice cars, and a house we bought 5 years ago. Life seemed ideal until February 2022, when I unexpectedly lost my mother to a heart attack. The months following her death were rough, not just for me, but also for Emily, who was very close to my mother. During this period, our lives slowed down significantly. We hardly went out, preferring to stay in and watch TV. I wasn't happy, but I believed we would get through this tough phase. That belief was shattered 5 weeks ago when Emily went out drinking with 3 male friends from work. Around 3:30 a.m., she came home with them and announced they were going out to the city. Although I didn't like it, I couldn't stop her. She returned home much later than I expected, arousing my suspicions. 4 weeks ago, she left for the entire Sunday, claiming she was going to a carnival with her mom. She even left without saying goodbye while I was in the shower. When she returned home that evening, she was in tears. My first instinct was to comfort her, asking what had happened. Her response was shocking. "I want a divorce." We talked about it, both of us emotional. I asked her directly if she had cheated, and she denied it. She claimed she had been unhappy for a long time, though she had never mentioned any problems before. Her sudden demand for a divorce left me bewildered. She moved in with her mother shortly after. 4 days later, I saw her again because we had a dog neither of us could care for alone. When we met, I confronted her about cheating again, and this time she admitted it. She had been unfaithful for a week, starting the night she went drinking until the day she left. She said she thought she was in love with the guy she had cheated with. When I asked what made him so special, she just said they had a good connection. Emily seemed to be going through some sort of crisis. She dyed her hair purple and signed up for motorcycle lessons. I tried to reconcile with her for the first couple of weeks, but she ignored all my serious messages, responding only to casual ones with short, arrogant replies. Her personality seemed to have changed overnight. She treated me like I never existed and acted as if I was some piece of garbage. I couldn't understand how she had changed so quickly. What would happen when the honeymoon phase with this guy ended? Despite the betrayal, I still remembered the good foundation of our marriage. We were now 5 weeks past D-Day, and she hadn't officially filed for divorce, nor had I. I suspected she was still seeing the guy she cheated with. I was torn between wanting to save our marriage and ending it. Living in this limbo was unbearable. Initially, I felt extremely guilty and thought I might have contributed to the problems in our marriage. But once she admitted to cheating, those feelings started to fade. While I might share some blame for the end of our marriage, her actions were the primary reason. She had never shown any signs of unhappiness or communicated any issues, then topped it off by cheating. I no longer believed there was a way back from this. I didn't even miss her anymore. I missed what we once were. The holidays were particularly tough with my mom gone and now facing a potential divorce. I tried to stay positive with the support of my sister and a good group of friends. It had been over 8 years since I dated, and while I wasn't ready to dive back into single life, part of me was excited about the future. Reflecting on our marriage, we were young when we got married. I was 26 and she was 21. It seemed like Emily had changed a lot over the years, possibly suppressing her feelings until they exploded. Despite this, we shared many mutual interests and hobbies. We both loved gaming, though we rarely played together. We enjoyed watching Netflix shows and staying in to watch movies rather than going out drinking. We occasionally went to the cinema or out for dinner. We both liked motorcycles. I had a license and a bike, and she enjoyed riding as a passenger. Emily had an impulsive nature that balanced my tendency to overthink. She was straightforward and honest until things went downhill. 4 years ago, when I got addicted to a video game, she told me directly that it was affecting our relationship, so I cut back. I loved her sense of humor, her looks, and even her quirks. But those feelings were fading rapidly. Our intimate life had been unexciting and infrequent, averaging twice a month. Now, looking back, everything seemed to unravel so quickly. Yesterday, I made some calls to a mediator. In the Netherlands, We have mediators who handle all aspects of divorce, including the legal, financial, and emotional parts. They act as a neutral party to help arrange the divorce. Today, we had a meeting with the mediator. Unfortunately, Emily's car broke down, so I had to pick her up. For this process to work, both of us needed to be present, so I reluctantly agreed to drive her. The talk with the mediator went as expected. We both expressed our desire for a divorce, but the infidelity wasn't mentioned. The mediator remains neutral, so I didn't think it was worth bringing up. In the Netherlands, there are no laws against cheating, so it wouldn't affect her rights in the divorce. After the mediator left, Emily and I sat in silence, barely speaking. Eventually, I asked if she had anything left to say. Her response was a simple no. I told her she could go because I didn't want her there. She asked if I could take her home, but I refused. I was not in the mood to drive her 30 minutes back to her mother's house. She looked a bit emotional, perhaps expecting me to help her as I always did in the past. She called her mom to pick her up, and I watched her leave, visibly hurt and emotional. Despite everything, I still noticed her strange behavior and believed she was still in the affair fog. Although I still loved who she used to be, I had to stay strong and treat her as if she meant nothing to me now. At that moment, she didn't mean anything to me anymore. She wasn't the woman I had married and been loyal to. I had been working as a driver at a transport company, let's call it Supertrans, for 11 years. 4 months ago, I quit and started a new job at another transport company. Emily also worked at Supertrans in the office, and her affair partner, whom I'll call Matt, worked in the warehouse. I knew everyone at Supertrans well, including her colleague Thomas, who was a good friend of mine. Thomas had been present the night Emily cheated but left early. Emily had vacation time and was supposed to return to work next Monday. I was strongly considering telling Thomas about the affair to warn him about Emily's lack of morals. I knew this might seem like a revenge move, but I felt it was necessary to inform him about the kind of person she had become. For the past 6 weeks, I have received tremendous support from people online, helping me cope mentally. I had a question about Emily's behavior. Was it normal for someone in an affair fog to treat everyone around them like trash, except for their affair partner and parents? She was treating me with zero respect, acting as if I was the worst husband ever. Despite her claims of being unhappy for years, I knew this was not true. Her behavior was also affecting others, like my father, who she used to be close with, and her best friend, who she had been ignoring. Emily used to regularly take my dad to an amusement park after my mom passed away. He loved her, and now he was aging rapidly due to the stress. Her behavior was causing pain to those who cared about her, including her best friend, who had been crying all day after Emily ignored her messages about their plans. It was incredibly sad to see the impact of her actions on others. Emily was going around telling people that we split up because we grew apart, and that she hadn't been happy for years. I believed this was typical cheater behavior, making excuses and not being honest about the affair. Her best friend, who had lived with us for 6 months, confirmed that Emily had never mentioned being unhappy with me. I felt certain that Emily was lying to justify her cheating and the end of our marriage. Despite the pain, I was determined to tell the truth to everyone who asked why we were divorcing. I wanted people to know the real reason and not be misled by her excuses. I hoped karma would hit her hard. Whenever anyone reached out to me about our separation, I corrected Emily's lies with the truth. I even showed texts between her and a friend where she claimed we had simply grown apart. I told our mutual friend the real reason. Emily cheated and left me for another man. Everyone was shocked to hear the truth because no one, including me, would have ever thought Emily was capable of such betrayal. As I continued to process everything, I started focusing on myself. I joined a gym and began working out regularly, which helped both physically and mentally. I also decided to keep the house and worked out the finances to buy out Emily's share. Owning the house would be a significant step in moving forward with my life. I wasn't sitting around idly. I focused on bettering myself, both physically and mentally. I had started working out at the gym, and after 3 months, I could see and feel the changes. Not only was I becoming more fit, but my confidence was growing. It was something I desperately needed after everything that had happened. The house was another significant factor. I spoke with the bank and arranged to take on a higher mortgage to buy out Emily's share. It wasn't easy, but owning the house outright would give me stability and a sense of accomplishment. The house was worth around $300,000, and although I wasn't thrilled about paying her $65,000, it was a long-term investment in my future. Emily, on the other hand, had no place of her own anymore. She was officially living with her mom, but I knew she spent a lot of time at Matt's place. I had a mutual friend who kept me informed about her situation. Matt, who seemed so perfect to her initially, was now struggling with depression and was out of a job. This news came as no surprise to me. I always believed he was worthless compared to me, and now it was becoming evident. Karma, it seemed, was starting to catch up with them. Not only was Matt proving to be a loser, but he had also introduced Emily to hard drugs. My mutual friend confirmed this, showing me screenshots of conversations where Emily admitted to her new lifestyle. It was like watching her dig her own grave, and while it hurt to see her self-destruct, it wasn't my problem anymore. I hadn't spoken to Emily during the holidays, but about a week into the new year, she texted me out of the blue, asking if she could come over. When she arrived, she looked miserable. She told me she had spent Christmas Day alone, sobbing, and wanted to know how my holidays had been. I told her the truth. My Christmas was okay, but not great, considering it was the first without my mom. But I made sure to let her know I was doing well. This visit puzzled me. Why would she care how I was doing unless she had regrets? Her mother had also called me after New Year's, wishing me well and letting me know that Emily wasn't doing great. Emily had told her mother she wished things hadn't ended the way they did, which implied to me that she was having second thoughts. But at this point, it didn't matter. I had already decided to move on. Our divorce was progressing. We had gathered all the necessary documents and were waiting for the mediator to schedule our next meeting. I was mentally prepared for the divorce, whether Emily had regrets or not. The marriage was over, and I needed to focus on my future. I had also been talking to a girl I knew from childhood. She had lost her father last year, so we connected on that level. While our relationship was purely platonic, it was nice to have someone to talk to who understood my pain. 5 months had passed since the initial shock of discovering Emily's affair. I had made mistakes like begging and pleading with her, but I eventually stopped and focused on rebuilding my life. I hadn't contacted her for anything other than divorce-related matters in the last 3 months. I found solace in the gym and in regaining my self-confidence. Meanwhile, Emily's life seemed to be spiraling out of control. She was struggling, and her relationship with Matt was not what she had hoped for. This gave me a sense of validation, knowing that her choices had consequences. Despite this, I didn't wish her harm. I just wanted to move on and leave the past behind. I was scheduled to sign the divorce papers in 4 days, making the end of our marriage official. Reflecting on the past months, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I mourned the loss of our marriage and the person Emily used to be, but I was also ready to close this chapter of my life. The support from the online community had been invaluable. Without it, I wouldn't be where I was, both mentally and physically. The journey had been tough, but I had come a long way. I was ready to face whatever the future held, stronger and more self-assured than before. The day came to sign the divorce papers. It was a moment filled with mixed emotions. I had already made peace with the end of our marriage, but there was still a sense of finality that was hard to process. Emily arrived at the mediator's office looking somber, and we both knew this was it, the end of a chapter that had once been filled with hope and dreams. We sat down with the mediator, and the process began. Each signature felt like a nail in the coffin of our relationship. Emily barely spoke, her eyes avoiding mine. I could tell she was struggling, perhaps even regretting her decisions, but it was too late for second thoughts. The papers were signed, and just like that, we were no longer husband and wife. As we left the office, Emily tried to talk to me, but I wasn't interested in hearing her out. I had spent months grappling with the pain of her betrayal, and now it was time to move forward. I told her I needed space and walked away, feeling a strange mix of liberation and sadness. Back at the house, I reflected on everything that had led to this point. The affair, the lies, the emotional turmoil. It had all taken a toll on me, but I had come out stronger. The gym had become my sanctuary, a place where I could focus on myself and rebuild my confidence. The physical changes were evident, but the mental strength I gained was even more significant. Meanwhile, Emily's life seemed to continue its downward spiral. Our mutual friend kept me informed about her situation. Matt was still unemployed and struggling with depression, and their relationship was far from the fairy tale she had envisioned. Emily's involvement with drugs only made things worse. It was painful to watch, but I knew I had to detach myself from her problems. I threw myself into work and personal growth. The job at the new transport company was going well, and I was making strides in my career. I also started engaging in hobbies I had neglected during my marriage. Riding my motorcycle, exploring new places, and even trying out new video games. All of these activities helped me rediscover myself. The girl from my childhood, Jessica, remained a good friend. Our conversations were therapeutic, allowing me to vent and process my emotions. Jessica was a constant reminder that life goes on and that new connections can be made, even in the aftermath of heartbreak. One evening, while scrolling through social media, I saw a post from Emily. She looked happy in the photo, but I knew it was just a facade. The comments from her friends were full of praise, but I could read between the lines. The girl who had once been my wife was lost, trying to fill the void with superficial happiness. It was a stark contrast to the real happiness I was starting to feel. Emily's mother reached out to me again, expressing her sorrow over how things had turned out. She confessed that Emily was not in a good place and that she worried about her constantly. While I felt sympathy for her mother, I reminded myself that Emily's choices had led her down this path. I couldn't save her from herself. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to focus on my self-improvement. The routine at the gym was paying off, and I felt stronger every day. My friends noticed the change in me, often commenting on how much more confident and happier I seemed. It was true. I was finding my footing again. The financial aspect of the divorce was another hurdle. I had managed to secure the funds to buy out Emily's share of the house, and now it was truly mine. It was a significant milestone, symbolizing my independence and the new life I was building. I decided to make some changes to the house, redecorating, painting the walls, and even buying new furniture. It was all part of making the space my own. The house, once a reminder of the life I had shared with Emily, was now a symbol of my new beginning. As the months passed, the pain of the past began to fade. I no longer felt the sting of betrayal as sharply as before. Instead, I felt a sense of pride in how far I had come. I had faced one of the most challenging experiences of my life and emerged stronger. Emily's presence in my life dwindled to almost nothing. We communicated only when necessary, mostly about the final details of the divorce and the financial settlement. Each interaction was a reminder of the life we had left behind, but it no longer held the power to hurt me. I started dating again, cautiously at first. The experience was both exciting and nerve-wracking. Meeting new people, going on dates, and exploring the possibility of new relationships was a stark contrast to the stability I had known for so long. But it was also liberating. I was no longer the man who had been cheated on. I was a man with a future full of possibilities. As I dipped my toes back into the dating world, I realized how much I had changed. The initial nervousness gave way to a newfound confidence. I was no longer defined by the betrayal I had suffered. Instead, I was a man who had learned from his past and was ready to embrace the future. One night I went out with Jessica. We had been friends for so long, and our connection was undeniable. It felt good to be around someone who understood me so well. As we talked and laughed, I realized how much I enjoyed her company. It was a stark contrast to the tension and heartache that had characterized my last months with Emily. Jessica and I started spending more time together. While we kept things platonic, there was a sense of comfort and understanding that I deeply appreciated. She had her struggles, and our shared experiences of loss brought us even closer. We leaned on each other, finding strength in our friendship. Meanwhile, Emily's life continued to unravel. The mutual friend who had kept me informed about her situation told me that Matt's depression had worsened, and their relationship was on the rocks. Emily's involvement with drugs had taken a toll on her mental health, and she was barely holding things together. It was a painful reminder of how far she had fallen, but I knew it wasn't my responsibility to save her. One evening, I received a message from Emily. She wanted to talk. Despite my reservations, I agreed to meet her. When we met, she looked worn out, a shadow of the person I once knew. She apologized for everything, tears streaming down her face. Emily admitted that she had made a huge mistake and that her life was falling apart. She asked if we could try to fix things. As I listened to her, a wave of emotions washed over me. There was a time when I would have given anything to hear those words, but now they felt hollow. I had moved on, rebuilt my life, and found a sense of peace that I wasn't willing to sacrifice. I told Emily that while I forgave her, there was no going back. Our chapter had ended, and I was focused on my future. Emily seemed to understand, though the realization hit her hard. We parted ways, and as I watched her walk away, I felt a sense of closure. It was the end of a painful journey, but it also marked the beginning of a new one. Back home, I immersed myself in my routines. The house was looking better than ever, and it truly felt like my own space. My friends continued to support me, celebrating my milestones and encouraging me to keep moving forward. The gym remained a cornerstone of my self-improvement journey, and I relished the progress I was making. Jessica and I grew even closer. Our bond was undeniable, and we eventually decided to give a romantic relationship a try. It felt natural, like the culmination of years of friendship and shared experiences. Dating her was a completely different experience than what I had with Emily. It was grounded in mutual respect, understanding, and genuine affection. The divorce was finally complete, and I received the official documents confirming it. Holding those papers in my hands was a surreal moment. It was the end of a significant chapter of my life, but also the beginning of a new one. The future was wide open, and I was ready to embrace it. I started to set new goals for myself. I wanted to travel, explore new hobbies, and continue my journey of self-improvement. The pain of the past was a distant memory, replaced by the excitement of what lay ahead. I had turned a corner, and there was no looking back. One day, while cleaning out an old drawer, I found a photo of Emily and me from our early days together. Instead of feeling a pang of sadness, I smiled. It was a reminder of how far I had come. I placed the photo back in the drawer, a part of my past that had shaped me into the person I am today. Jessica and I planned a trip together, our first real adventure as a couple. It was exhilarating to think about the future with her, someone who had been there through my darkest times and had now become a beacon of light in my life. We were both excited about the journey ahead, filled with possibilities and new experiences. Reflecting on the past year, I realized how much I had grown. The pain of betrayal had transformed into a catalyst for self-discovery and growth. I had faced my demons, rebuilt my life, and found happiness again. It was a journey I wouldn't have chosen, but one that ultimately made me stronger. As I looked out at the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. Life had a way of throwing curveballs, but it was how we responded that defined us. I had chosen to rise above the pain, find strength in adversity, and embrace the future with open arms. And for that, I was proud. Jessica and I embarked on our first trip together. We chose a scenic coastal town, a place where neither of us had been before. The excitement of exploring new places, coupled with the joy of being with someone who understood me so deeply, was invigorating. As we walked along the beach, the sound of the waves crashing against the shore, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Life had thrown its worst at me, and yet here I was, stronger and happier than ever. The trip was everything I had hoped for and more. We spent our days exploring, trying new activities, and simply enjoying each other's company. Every moment was a reminder of how far I had come and how much I had to look forward to. Jessica and I shared many laughs, deep conversations, and moments of quiet contentment. It was during one of these quiet moments that I realized how much I had fallen for her. Upon our return, life continued to move forward. Work was busy, but I enjoyed the challenge. I was making significant strides in my career, something I might not have pursued as vigorously had I not gone through the upheaval of the past year. The house, now fully my own, felt like a sanctuary. I had made it a reflection of who I had become, a place of peace and renewal. Emily occasionally crossed my mind, but the thoughts were fleeting. She was part of my past, a chapter that had closed. Our mutual friend kept me updated on her situation, but it no longer affected me. I heard that she and Matt had broken up, and she was struggling with the consequences of her choices. It was sad, but it was her path to walk. Jessica and I continued to grow closer. Our relationship was built on a solid foundation of friendship, mutual respect, and shared experiences. We supported each other in our personal growth and celebrated each other's successes. It was a partnership in the truest sense of the word, and it felt right. The time came for me to revisit some of the hobbies I had put on hold. I signed up for a motorcycle road trip with a group of enthusiasts. It was something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. The trip was exhilarating. Riding through the open roads, feeling the wind against my face, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in years. It was a reminder of the importance of pursuing passions and living life to the fullest. Back at home, I continued to redecorate and personalize my space. Each change was a step towards making the house truly mine. I hosted gatherings with friends, filling the space with laughter and joy. It was a stark contrast to the silent, tension-filled days that had marked the end of my marriage. My friends often commented on how different the house felt, warmer, more inviting. Jessica and I started talking about the future. We discussed our goals, dreams, and aspirations. It was exciting to plan a future together, knowing that we both had come from a place of pain and had found happiness in each other. We talked about traveling more, perhaps even moving in together one day. The possibilities seemed endless. As the months passed, the memories of the past year faded into the background. They were still there, but they no longer held power over me. I had learned to let go of the pain and embrace the lessons it had taught me. Life was unpredictable, but it was also beautiful in its resilience. One evening, while sitting on the porch with Jessica, watching the sunset, I reflected on the journey that had brought me here. The man I had become was shaped by the trials I had faced and the choices I had made. I was proud of my resilience, my strength, and my ability to find joy again. Jessica turned to me and smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "Just how lucky I am," I replied, taking her hand in mine, "and how grateful I am for you." She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we watched the sun dip below the horizon. It was a moment of peace, a testament to the journey I had taken and the new chapter I was writing. Life would continue to throw challenges my way, but I knew I had the strength to face them. With Jessica by my side and a future full of possibilities, I felt ready for whatever came next. The past was a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had found my way through the darkness and emerged into the light, stronger and happier than ever. And for that, I was grateful.